Okay, told you I'd be back. Here's a written one. This one is from a little while ago, August 23rd, 2010. The second of the day, Mayan day, was 11 offering or water. And it's called Strange 11 Day, What Awakens? Defining Love. What a strange and intense day it has been. Somewhat unusual as well, unusual things happening in it. Nothing big, just little things. Well, so they seem. We don't know necessarily what our 2020 hindsight will have to say about that. Little things turn out to often be rather big. It's been an 11 day for sure. Adjustment. Things not quite fitting in just right, needing adjustment. Maybe it was that way for you as well. Any 11 day is, or has that energy flowing through it. If you journal, then this is something you will be able later to go back and look at. You'll have the record of it there. Journaling is handy for that. And that's one of the reasons I always start mine with the Mayan calendar information attached. It helps later research. I've been monitoring the solar wind of late. Did you know you could do that? There's a website, spaceweather.com, that's pretty neat. It gives a basic summary of information on what's going on with the sun. In the upper left corner are two numbers that are like the E equals mc squared, whose quotient gives a value on the density and the intensity of the solar wind. Yesterday, it was quite exceptionally quiet, rather amazingly so. Then today, all at once, this early evening, it got tremendously dense. It was sending plasma our way, not just vaporous wind, intensely dense. So, being a sun lover, I took advantage of that by going out in it. After about 20 or 30 minutes, I had to come in. At 98 degrees, it was too hot for much more. What's interesting is how it knocked me out. Don't know if it was the temp or the wind or perhaps both, but I had to lay down, and I slept the sleep of the dead, as they say, for several hours, simply knocked out. Now, as I sit here propped up in the adjustable bed, there is still great lassitude in the body. The liver side aches, which is interesting. Anyway, I'm not going to get off into various things about this body. It's just interesting that the solar wind got so very dense is all. Even in our houses we are exposed to that, the radiation doesn't respect such barriers as buildings and the like, so all were exposed. Just not as thoroughly, as intentionally as I was. Interesting, that's all. It's interesting having the inner part of me, the spirit part, so inspired, so wanting to go, and having the body in such heaviness. It's not too terrible or anything. At least I could prop it up here and function. There have been plenty of times I couldn't do that, so this is good. Everything is good, really. It is my deep desire that all people awaken to this, how absolutely everything is not only good, it is so very beautiful. That's right, just as it is, warts and pimples, fat waistline and all. This is the gift of seeing, though, that so many people don't yet have. Well, I'm working on that, by God's grace. We shall see what comes, what becomes, as this grace flows through this form, but I'm devoted. Heart vision is available and accessible to all. That's my message. It's interesting as well how I, the real I, has no desires at all, no questions, no unmet needs, no anything like that. You have an I like that too. I have grounded or found this self grounded in that in some way. Tough to explain. Still, if you've been there, if you've touched this, then I know you'll understand. You'll know just what is meant. Then, what is interesting is to find this intensity of desire flowing through you. You know you have none, right? Then, where does this come from? The way I see it at this point is that it comes from spirit, capital S. Where else? I don't know. I think I'm tuning in to the desire of Source. Now, that may be terribly arrogant. If it is, then, well, it is what it is. I've got clay feet, as I've not tried to hide, as I've tried not to hide. And that's an important part of my work, of my being so upfront and out there with you. I want you to see how it's not so necessary. It is not necessary to be perfect to awaken. No one is perfect. When you're perfect, you naturally ascend right up and out of 3D. Bye-bye. So, if you can see it, it's not yet perfect. I think perfection may be overrated or misunderstood anyway. There's a whole point, a perfection and a beauty all its own to 3D, to our life and having our being here. Anchoring a portion of greater self in this form is such a blessing. I am delighted. Perfection will come when it comes. I'm not in a hurry. I like my now. I even like it here. Actually, that's probably what's crazy, huh? Liking my now. It is not the easiest now in the world, I can tell you. I don't find much virtue in easy, although it can be fun. I don't find it does much of anything for you, the real you. Oh, it's nice as it comes midst the difficult parts. Easy is very nice then. We need a break. Very welcome. But overall, easy doesn't make for the very best life. It doesn't pull and call the best out of you. Don't you see? Let's not sell out for easy then. Let's welcome the rest along too. Everything is so beautiful to me right now that I practically bliss out at just seeing it. Whatever situation I look upon, it's simply adorable. A bit strange, but nice. Love is great, I'm sure you'd agree. We're stepping up into such a higher level or being of love, though, that it bears precious little resemblance to anything we already know, at least here on the earth. One of my close correspondents asked me my definition of love. I was surprised to find myself answering him, but I did. He wrote back saying I should put it out there on Scribed with the rest of my writings. It resonated with him, for he is finding himself a bit alone in his definition, his understanding of things, which resonates with mine. The challenge is then in finding someone else who understands, who can echo any of this back to you. And that's the joy, too. One feels so alone at times. It's rather poignant, or can be. I'm sure a lot of poetry comes up from it. And that forms part of the joy to find a true correspondent, one who can mirror you back to yourself. That's what the best correspondents do. We reflect self back to self. We find we echo one another, and we rejoice in it. The joy found in simply being understood. especially when cruising at these levels, finding your being so very high, so rarefied among those in 3D, well, it is priceless and a very special joy and fulfillment. I know what that means, and I know a lot of you do too. I have lived like that without much understanding at first. You just know you are driven, positively driven certain ways, and you follow. You take joy in that. You're quite surprised when you wake up one day, look around, and realize where you are, what you've become. It isn't really a becoming either. It's more in what you've thrown off of the world's programming and just general crap. You've stepped out from under so much of that, and your seeing is suddenly much clearer than before. You rejoice. In a way, this awakening thing is a lark. In another way, it's nonsense and ridiculous. How so? Indeed. Well, what you find as you're awakening, and for me, this crept up on me on little cat feet, it came in states, is that there is less and less of you there to awaken. What do I mean by that? Well, good question. I'm crazy to tackle these things in writing, you know. It's not really possible, as far as I know, to answer them, to put words around them. But anyway, what do I mean, less of you? Well, just look at it from the disidentifying perspective. We all understand that, I hope. We've all stepped back from the life at least enough to have a good look now and then. So when you step back, what do you find? You find you are not really that, right? Go listen to some of Muji's videos if you haven't had this experience yet, or Gangaji. It's there to be had for everyone. First, it was the stepping back from the belief that I am this body. I had OBEs and things to help me with that, and made my study of NDEs, near-death experiences, the hobby of a dozen years or more. So I have absolutely no doubt at all I am not this body. That's the first. I am not that. Then comes the big one, though, the mind. That I admit to still being entangled in to